In the early 1940s, Adolf Hitler ruled Germany with an iron grip. He promised greatness, unity, pride, and for a while, many believed him. The streets were draped in swastika flags, children marched in perfect lines, and newspapers echoed only one voice, the Führer's. Behind this carefully polished facade, terror was growing. Books were burned, Jewish families disappeared overnight. Those who questioned the regime vanished, often without a trace. And in the middle of this carefully silenced world stood a young woman with a suitcase full of paper. This is the story of Sophie Scholl, a young university student who defied Hitler, not with weapons, but with words and unwavering courage. In the heart of Nazi Germany, where silence was survival, she chose to speak. If you've never heard her name before, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't forget it. Sophie Magdalena Scholl was born on May 9, 1921, in a small German town called Fürstenberg. She was the fourth of 5 siblings, raised in a household filled with books, music, and critical thought. Her father, a liberal and outspoken man, often warned his children.
What's legal isn't always what's right.
Sophie was bright, thoughtful, and deeply sensitive to injustice. She loved art, poetry, hiking in nature, and philosophical discussions around the dinner table. Like many young Germans in the 1930s, Sophie initially joined the League of German Girls, the female wing of Hitler's youth movement. Not out of loyalty, but because everyone else did. It was part of being young in Germany back then. Uniforms were normal. Chanting slogans was normal. Questioning was not. But Sophie did question. Something didn't feel right. She began to question the authoritarian tone and blind loyalty demanded by the regime.
Why do you allow these things to happen? Why are you so apathetic while injustice is taking place right before your eyes?
In 1942, she enrolled at the University of Munich, where she studied biology and philosophy. Her older brother Hans was already there. He had been studying medicine at the same university for several years and had quietly surrounded himself with a group of students and professors who, like him, could no longer stay silent. He introduced her to their resistance group named Die Weiße Rose, the White Rose. Their weapon? Words. Sophie joined them, and together they wrote and distributed anti-Nazi pamphlets across southern Germany, urging the public to open their eyes, to question what was happening, and to resist. Sophie became one of the key figures in the group, even when it meant risking her life. She even chalked messages like "Freedom" on city walls.
Isn't it our duty to rid ourselves of this monster of a government? Prove by your actions that you think differently.
On February 18, 1943, Sophie and Hans entered the University of Munich with a suitcase full of pamphlets. As classes went on, they placed them around the hallways. And just before leaving, Sophie made a bold decision. She walked to the top of the atrium and threw the remaining stack over the balcony, letting them flutter down like snow. A janitor witnessed it. He called the Gestapo, the Nazi regime's secret police, feared for their brutal methods and swift arrests. Within minutes, Sophie and Hans were taken into custody. During intense interrogations, Sophie remained calm. She didn't try to save herself. In fact, she took responsibility and defended her actions with quiet strength. She looked the officer in the eye and said,
What we said and wrote is what many people think. They just don't dare say it out loud. I am proud of what I have done. I will accept the consequences.
Just 4 days later, on February 22, 1943, Sophie, Hans, and their friend Christoph Probst were sentenced to death by guillotine. The trial lasted less than an hour. The execution happened the same day. Sophie faced death with extraordinary composure. Her last recorded words were,
How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? It is such a splendid sunny day, and I have to go. But what does my death matter? If through us, thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action.
Sophie Scholl didn't lead armies. She didn't win battles. But she made history with nothing but words and courage. She didn't live long, but she lived loudly, bravely, and right. And that is a legacy no one can erase. Today, schools, squares, and streets across Germany bear her name. Her story is taught in classrooms. Her face appears on stamps, books, and murals. But most importantly, her legacy lives on every time someone dares to speak truth to power.